there is a lot of commonality between Manohar Lohia and Jayaprakash Narayan. Manohar Lohia is 8 years younger than Jayaprakash Narayan. But died earlier than Jayaprakash Narayan, 67 and 70. And both of them were exposed to Gandhi at an early age. Lohia listened to Gandhi at an early age. And Lohia left for Berlin in 1929 for studies and returned in 1933. Whereas Jayaprakash Narayan left for studies in US in 1922 and returned in 29. So Lohia was in Germany while civil disobedience movement was going on, but he followed it from a distance from there, and he got his doctorate on the subject salt and satyagraha in 1932. And after that he returned in 33. And here he studied a lot of Marxism. And then after he came back, he was a part of Congress Socialist Party, which was formed in 1934 along with Jayaprakash Narayan. And Lohia took part in Quit India movement and was jailed, imprisoned in Lahore Port jail along with Jayaprakash Narayan. And he was involved in broadcasting regularly during Quit India movement. And he set up Praja Socialist Party in 1952 along with JP. So, what you can see, what is common to Jayaprakash Narayan and JP is that exposure to Gandhism and Marxism. So till this time, 1952, you can say journey is similar. Okay. It is from this they took different routes. JP left institutional politics, moved to what he called Lokaniti. Whereas Lohia remained with party politics, which JP would say Rajniti. So, we can compare the views of these two and who is more relevant or a more systematic thinker. Lohia became MP for the first time in 1963. So he was not a successful politician, but he inspired politics in post-independent India. Okay, so this is the comparison, and you will see that Lohia is more scholarly in his approach compared to JP. For example, Lohia did PhD on salt and satyagraha, whereas JP managed to complete MA in sociology because JP tried many other subjects. And more importantly, Lohia was more studious, more dedicated to studies. And also because there was a time gap of 8 years, probably Lohia had better exposure to critique of Marxism. So Lohia was a more systemic critic of Marxism compared to Prakash Narayan. So this is what Lohia had to say. First, of course, Lohia rejected capitalism because with its right to private property increases inequalities and in the end undermines even liberty. This is expected of a socialist. But he was critical of Marxian theories also. For example, Lohia said, ideas also play a role along with economic factors. So in that sense, he is critic of materialism as proposed by Marx. And he said societies don't have a unilinear growth from primitive communism to communism. This idea of unilinear growth is less relevant outside Europe. So that is to say, you can't expect what Marx thought to be applicable in India or outside Europe. Okay, and Lohia felt Marx didn't completely understand the link between capitalism and imperialism. Marx didn't pay much attention. To Lohia, capitalism and imperialism were interlinked. When Britain was growing using capitalism as an economic ideology, it was facilitated by imperialism. It was taking resources from colonies and using colonial countries as markets. Lohia felt that Marx didn't see or pay attention to this connection between capitalism and imperialism. And more labor is extracted as surplus in the colonial countries compared to European countries. And Marxian predictions are not true. For example, in Europe, living standards improved and middle classes are formed. And many of these things are not unique to Lohia. Some of them are criticisms by others. For example, there is a very clear evidence for this by Bernstein. And Lohia also felt that Marx didn't have a theory of nationalism. So, on the whole, Lohia was not a dogmatic Marxist. He was critical of Marxism. It was not just application of Marxism by Lenin and Stalin with their abuses of human rights. So, Lohia's understanding of Marxism is this. And then he proposed decentralization. Okay, now coming to Lohia's ideas. On what should be done. Lohia believed in decentralization. Okay, like JP. Lohia wanted decentralization both in economic terms and political terms. And without this decentralization, there is no democracy and there is no socialism. And decentralization comes only through Panchayat Raj institutions. Okay, so this is what he believed in. So this is what he had to say. Lohia proposed 4-pillar state. 4-pillar state. He said the next great advance in constitution making will be when a country frames its constitution on the basis of 4-pillar state. What are those 4 pillars? The village, the district, the province, that is state, and the center. So only difference here is Jayaprakash Narayan proposed 5. This being 4 pillars of equal majesty and dignity. Okay. And 4-pillar state is both legislative as well as executive arrangement. It includes planning, production. Certain things like railways go to the center and things like small textile units go to the district. So depending upon the level, they will be owned and organized. Okay. I need not add that a substantial part of state revenues should stay with the village and the district. And agriculture, industry and other property which is nationalized should be as far as possible be owned and administered by village, city and district panchayats. Okay. So this is Lohia's version of decentralization. Okay. No different from JP's. But Lohia makes one very clear statement against Gandhi's self-sufficient village. The concept of self-sufficiency had better to be eliminated. The village must stage in close relationship. The village must stay in close relationship with numerous other villages and also the world at large. Of course, this is sensible and this is in tune with Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage and trade. So, Lohia is only updating Gandhian thinking, Gandhi's importance to the village, but Lohia is giving proper theoretical foundation. So here Lohia defines socialism and democracy in this way. Look at the way he defines democracy. The greatest single quality of democracy in the present age of decentralization and its meaning must be fixed both in terms of defined political power belonging to small units of direct democracy and economic arrangements and technology that would give the working man a greater understanding of control over productive process. So, give power to lower level units where direct democracy is possible. And economic arrangements should be such that there should be economic decentralization. And then one aspect of Lohia's thinking is he pays attention to the role of technology. So to Lohia, scale of technology is important. Scale of technology has implications to the level of economic decentralization. And economic decentralization has implications to political decentralization and the quality of democracy. Okay. And how should power be distributed across these levels in a four-pillar state? As to decentralization of political power, the principle may be laid down straight away as one of the maximum divisible powers to the village or the city, consistent with integrity and unity of the country. So, maximum to the bottom, consistent with integrity. So, levels. So, maximum here, but consistent with maintaining unity. Okay. So, this kind of a system where maximum power is located at the lower levels, Lohia thought, is democracy. Lohia thought, this is socialism. This, to Lohia, is ideal arrangement. And he gives a definition of socialism. If socialism is to be defined in two words, then they are equality and prosperity. I don't know if this definition has been given earlier at any time. If so, I would call it the best definition given so far. So what is of interest in this definition is that Lohia wants equality, but he doesn't want equality in poverty. He wants equality along with prosperity. So, Lohia believed that prosperity is possible with socialism. And socialism should ensure that not only that it generates prosperity, but it doesn't undermine inequality. Okay. And then to this, he also adds certain moral aspects. Included in socialism or satyagraha. What does it mean? Satyagraha means settling conflict through non-violence. Not through violence. And then belief in theory of ends and means, that right means are needed for right ends. This is coming from Gandhi, and the same thing JP also said. So there is a moral and ethical component in Lohia's socialism. And then belief in small scale technology. Small scale ones to set up a district village level, and labor intensive technology. Why labor intensive? Because labor intensive and less capital makes it more accessible. So it is an aspect of economic decentralization. And public ownership of large industries to avoid concentration of wealth, and land reforms. Okay. And Lohia also says limits should be imposed on incomes as well as expenditures. He used to ask even Nehru his expenditure. Lohia believed that there should not be much inequality between incomes and expenditures of the rich and the poor. And he proposed just one class in railways. And for some years, there should be no cars for private use. Focus on public transport. Okay. So there is a equality dimension, equality in terms of income, expenditure, and there is moral dimension. Okay, non-violence and no scope for violence. Okay, and we know this calls for banking on positive nature of man. Okay, so till this point we can say there is no difference between JP and Lohia till this point. But from now onwards, they take two different directions. JP moves towards solving the issues without state help, whereas Lohia believes in role of state. This is a very important divergence between the two. And here there are certain very important implications. What do we mean? If you are saying decentralize and let people do, this approach banks on society to rectify itself. Decentralize, strengthen the society, and it will reform itself. It will take care of itself and don't involve state. This is JP. Whereas Lohia would say decentralize. Okay. But society is not good enough to take care of itself. And so state is needed to change the society. So whether society can change itself or the state is needed to change the society is an issue. Those who believe that Indian society is in a very bad shape, they want state to reform society. But those who think society can take care of itself and the state is the problem, they believe they don't, they think they don't want to involve state in that. Okay. Lohia believed in state reforming the society. We can say in this, Ambedkar also would agree. For example, Gandhi also proposed village-centered development. But Ambedkar said no. Why? Gandhi believed in village taking care of itself, whereas Ambedkar saw village as nothing but superstition and casteism. So, those who believe in society reforming itself may propose decentralization, but those who see society as the source of the problem may believe state should intervene. Which is Ambedkar's approach. So you can see this is JP's and this is Lohia's. So in some very important ways, Lohia and Ambedkar thought similarly, because they thought society as a problem and it cannot be left to itself. Okay, so Lohia said revolutions are needed for society to change. And what are those revolutions? They are called 7 revolutions. Seven revolutions. Okay. But this number, this 7 is stated differently in different accounts. So I want to focus on the essence of these revolutions. Lohia said there is discrimination based on gender. Patriarchy is very important in Indian society, and this should be undone. That is a revolution. Discrimination based on race, discrimination based on caste, these two should be undone. And discrimination based on class also should be undone. Okay. And the implication of this point of view is that Lohia is looking at different dimensions of inequality and discrimination. He is not equating caste with class. Class is one source of inequality and caste is another source of inequality. Normally, socialists think if class differences are taken care of, caste will automatically be taken care of. But Lohia is saying, no. Class is one variable and caste is another variable. There may be convergence, but they should be separated. This is an important issue. Ambedkar would agree. Okay. And so he said certain positive steps, affirmative action is needed to end these inequalities. How? Caste-based reservation. Very important proposal that Lohia made. Okay. And race-based reservation, ethnicity-based reservation, and also gender-based reservation. So, reservation means that one is taking role of state because it is state that is giving reservations. So gender based, so he said reservation to women, SC, ST, OBC. And then also these from other religions also. You know, at one time, okay, even now, there are no SC reservations for non-Hindus. But Lohia thinks that across the religions, SCs, STs and OBCs should be given reservations, and women also. And this can go up to 60%. So this is a huge step in terms of social justice. because of which finally OBC reservations came, and OBC reservations across religions. Okay. And then Lohia also said that language wise discrimination also shouldn't be there. But here Lohia is more interested that English, or English people who are familiar with English and English, is becoming source of domination. So Lohia felt that Hindi should be promoted. But when he was saying Hindi should be promoted, it was not Hindi versus South Indian languages. He meant Hindi along with other native languages. So his socialistic concerns extended to issues of culture also. And then he said we should struggle to reduce inequalities across nations. Okay, and then these fight against inequalities should not take a toll on liberty. There should be no encroachment of private life. Okay, so main point in this is that society has to be reformed, and reformed with the help of the state. Okay, this is what Ambedkar also would see. In fact, in 1955, Lohia and Ambedkar intended to meet, but Ambedkar died it never materialized because Ambedkar died soon after in 1956. Okay. And coming to his views on education, he believed in labor. A large part of child's initial instruction had to be woven around some form of agricultural or industrial activity. An year's experience on a farm or a factory as a part of undergraduate program. This is same as Gandhi. And he preferred education in native languages because that is the way to bring, and administration should be in a native language or Hindi. When he said progressive replacement of English by Hindi, he wanted Hindi to be a link language across the regions rather than English. And then he linked the language policy with decentralization also. Power, including the right to choose its language of primary instruction and commerce, were given to the village community. So one can criticize Lohia's policy on Hindi, but one cannot criticize on the ground that he is trying to impose on others. His concerns are different. He was not planning to impose Hindi because he is saying that village should choose its language. Okay, so this is how Lohia thought of different issues, and in a more interesting ways. and he recognized the role of state and importance of reservations and how society cannot be left to itself through through economic and political decentralization. So that is why I would rate Lohia far more systemic thinker than JP. Thank you. So they are important ideas. And then Lohia had certain things on other aspects also. Lohia was atheist but not against religion. He said religion is long-term politics and politics is a short-term religion. So here you can see religion, Gandhian view that religion and politics can go together because religion is the source of ethics. Okay. But unlike Gandhi, Lohia wants religious criticism. Indian mind should have patience to hear criticisms of Rama or Muhammad. It should not spill blood or burn books. Okay. This is definitely unlike Gandhism. And Lohia wants different versions of Ramayana and Mahabharata to be heard and to be discussed among the people, because after all they are myths, and different classes can take different versions. Not everybody has to believe Valmiki's Ramayana. So lower caste can take a different version of Ramayana. So this is a different unusual stand. And then regarding women, he said he praised Sweden that had hospitals with notice boards, unmarried mothers are given special care. So he wanted women to be free. He didn't think of morality in a conservative and Hindu sense. So these are his views on religion and gender, which are quite radical. And then he also had certain views on the world and how nations should relate themselves. He wanted equality across nations. And to his 4-pillar state, he added another pillar at a 5th level. Okay. And he wanted to promote non-proliferation of weapons. And he wanted barrier-free movement of the people. And World Parliament to be formed on the basis of adult franchise. And eventual formation of world government. Okay, these are great ideas, but then he also said protection of territorial integrity. So in the context of India, Lohia was talking about great internationalism, but he didn't, it is unfortunate, he didn't really look at Jammu and Kashmir and India's, what India was doing to its citizens in the name of preserving integrity. And also his views on internationalism don't also merge well with his opposition to English. If you want citizens to have international outlook, I mean, if you wanted, then English would help. English would be a link between India and other countries. So, I am not particularly impressed by Lohia's views on internationalism.